Uh, so, like I explained before, the last time I discussed the intervention in the price ceiling and the price floor, and today the taxes and subsidies. Here, when you look at the taxes, uh, basically we're looking at there are two type of tax: direct and indirect tax. Here, tax on goods, which mean indirect tax, not the direct tax scenario discussed here, because the demand and supply case. Of course, the direct tax also directly affect to the demand, but here I don't discuss that one. So the last time what we discussed price floor, the price setting above the market price. What happened, we discussed the immediately surplus create, and that effect ultimately it create the debt weight lost. And in addition, uh, so many issues basically the huge amount of unemployment created within the economy that make several issues. And also it cost to the government, but the government doesn't get any income throughout this kind of policy. And ultimately taxpayers are the victims of that. Price ceiling, the price setting below the market price. And they are below the market price, it create a immediate thing in the shortage because the high demand and the low supply, and they make the black market prices, and the black market prices may create so many issues within the society, and also the analyzing consumer surplus and producer surplus, we saw that it create debt weight loss. In addition to debt weight loss, the other effect also we discussed, they also create a kind of a low product, and it affect like last time discussed the production possibility frontier, and ultimately what happened, and the production possibility frontier is back, and which means it's not economic growth happen, the economy is shrinking, and backward growth happen. This may be this kind of policies. Also, in terms of social welfare, also we noticed that the negatively affect to the society, also this kind of intervention. But their argument, we need the government intervention, such a kind of price ceiling, price floor. That not just purpose of intervention and support either consumers or producers, have to look at the leading and more linkage industries and the future potential. Looking at that, maybe government has to intervene and promote or promote certain industries and services. So one of the things really we have to look at. And today I just look at that now. The kind of policies we discuss how it costs to taxpayers. For example, setting the price floor, get the same result giving subsidies also you can create issues, and here setting the price floor, and you can see here it create a huge surplus, or like what we discussed. Either surplus has to be destroyed, has to buy government or something happen. But in case the long term, it not sustainable. If the government buy, the taxpayers has to pay. Right now, someone present one group, and the fertilizer subsidies about 50 million billions per year. That's for as a subsidy. But give subsidies 50 million, government have to collect tax more than that because the administrative cost and collecting tax and wherever subsidies and this control, their corruption commission also apply. In that case, at least we have to add another 50%, which means 75 billions the cost. All the cost to the taxpayers. Now, similar, like I explained, giving subsidies to get the same result like a price floor. So you can see cost to the taxpayers. Now the difference we can look at whether give the subsidy or price floor. This area value and depend on the elasticity, demand and supply. The other thing also, the subsidy case and the price floor case, government does not get any money, only cost to the taxpayers. So you can see how that happens. Now today, what we look at the what is so basically like explain compulsory payment to the government. This might be individual firms for the commodities and different ways. So many ways, like I explained, from individual, their transaction, their own income, their spending, they pay fine. Now, right now, the worst case also in Sri Lankan government, maybe when I mentioned the government right now look like IMF control the country. Even the IMF controlling, IMF doing is, of course, what I analyze is the negatively affect to the long-term economic growth because the purpose is imposing tax wherever possible, just collect money to the government and not the purpose of the other like environment issues and give the promotion or incentive to the particular industries or promote the necessary industry. Now, one of the reasons things I think government introduced or increased the tax, digital services. That, of course, right now we are living in the fifth industrial revolution. Digital, data, IT, online is the key thing. Now, like blood in your body, digital services all over you. Now, two things, government may say that, or IMF may say that, increasing this one, foreign, because the main providers, service providers, including even the, let's say, simple thing, the software, the multinational companies, and collecting tax from them is maybe government can increase tax revenue, but the government has to look at the negative impact. One thing, if Sri Lanka produce this kind of services, maybe we can say government increase the tax, promote those kind of services. My understanding and Sri Lanka within the country, domestic producers don't produce these services. If you Google, it's Google's data and all the SMEs and the right now businesses need these services, not only the businesses, individual also. What ultimately happened, increasing digital service tax, all the sectors, individual businesses, their cost of production, cost of living increase. That's badly affect, that would be worse than government impose tax on petrol or diesel. Because right now the economy blood moving through those services and data. Another thing also, those big companies, Sri Lanka is a very small market, they may stop providing services, rather paying high tax, because they're looking at go to new market and find that. In that way, you are, for example, SME, you use those services, your cost of production increase, what you do, that again, dump to the individual household there, so the consumers badly affected. Directly consumers badly affected also because the consumers like online, for example, you have a Zoom meeting, and those also increase cost of production. I don't understand the rationale of the government, though since government try to say, think of youth, think of new generation, because the new generation work in the gig economy, and this definitely negatively affected. So here, I look at the tax, like I mentioned, tax on goods and services. There are also government can target tax uh, like a supplier or directly tax collect from the consumers. Now, it's affect, we can explain using demand and supply curve both. Now, this graph, you can see using uh, government target collect tax from the supplier. So in that way, the supply curve shift. Now, if I, let's say, draw the original situation here, demand and supply, what happened with the uh, uh, supply curve shift inward? Yeah, you can see there's one supply curve because if you look at the original production is Q1, let's say 50, right? Now the original consumers pay the $54. Now after tax, let's say the tax per unit, again assume this here $3. Now the market really they become price 7. So you can see the same amount with the tax higher price. So the new supply curve H1 you can see. So here now you can see original production Q0, let's say 100 unit. After tax production drop to 50. Now first I will show you how neoclassical economics, like you already explained, how textbook explain this kind of tax effect on the economy, society, and individual. They use the consumer surplus and producer surplus. Originally, if I put the numbers here, A, B, C, these A, B, C are areas, the consumer surplus, part of the consumer surplus, originally. So in the exam, you should be able to measure before tax situation, these are the areas. The producer surplus originally, there you can see B, E, and F area. That is the producer surplus. D, E, plus F. So this all together, originally before tax, the social welfare, which means the welfare of the society, welfare of economy, people. Now you see, after the government imposed tax, in our case, let's say tax per unit $3. Now the equilibrium point reached to the point, let's say point here, capital A, which means the buyers has to pay $7. Seller get $4 because the different $3 goes to the government per unit, the government revenue. Now, since the price becomes $7, which means the PB buyers, the consumer surplus after tax only limited, after tax consumer surplus only limited to area A. Though I put the letter here in the exam, you should be able to calculate. Now, for example, here maximum price is 10. You can measure here. Difference is 3. 3 multiply 50, which means the $75 million only consumer surplus. Now, before B and C area, also the consumers had. Now look at the producer surplus. Now producers get only $4, which means the PS dollar. Their surplus only limited again after tax area E. Area E. Now what happened? Area B and C and D and F. Now here, one good B and D go to the government as government revenue. Government revenue. Because since the market failure happened, the government need money to correct market failure, but that is not happening in Sri Lankan government because the government collect tax, not correct the market failure, correct the government failure. That is the point. Now, social welfare again, if it is the government also part of the use those money for people benefit and build public goods, address the externalities, address domestic information, those things. Social welfare now become WE. Only again A, B, B and E area. A, B and D government revenue. So the government gives now bigger share. That's the point. Now, my case is what happened to the area C and F now goes to none of the go. It's not to consumer, not to producer, not to government. That part we call net weight loss. Net weight loss of the tax. C and F. Now imagine this now completely lost to the entire society. Original social welfare, if you assume, I did not calculate, let's say 500 million dollars. Now it's reduced, let's say this two area is 50 million, reduced by 50, now only after tax social welfare dropped to 450 million. If anyone say in that way the tax benefit to the society, how can you say? Now, danger here, like Sri Lankan government collect tax only collecting revenue purpose, if not address the government failure, this happen worst case. Again, the government failure. Sri Lanka collect this fund money to collect the government failure. So that's what you can see. The other point also, now lion's share, the big shares go to government. If government really use this money to correct market failure, for example, produce public goods, address externality. Now, there also one problem is affect to negatively to the economy through the crowding now. Now, previously area D and F belong to producer, the producers additional profit. What those entrepreneurs use those money, because the producers, we identically, if producers, they are entrepreneurs. They use those money, let's say this is the about 25 million and somewhere here, let's say about 200 million. But 250 million private entrepreneurs, they use those money either reinvestment or research and development. Maybe if not entrepreneurs in some of the producers like Sri Lanka, maybe they use for nightclubs and things also. That may happen. But ideally, identically, they are entrepreneurs, they use research and development and reinvestment. What happened with that, the production possibility frontier gradually they can move, they can help to move the production possibility frontier gradually. Now, right here, these two areas, now one F definitely lost to the entire economy. The areas go to the government. Now we know, not only Sri Lanka, any other country, compared to the private firm, private sector, the government entities are inefficient. With that inefficient, though the area the government use, again the development purpose, it may not move the production possibility frontier like before with the private entrepreneurs they use. Now, you might say the private public sector compared to the private sector efficient, but it can't be happen because the public sector, those public servants, they may get that kind of position, managerial position or director, maybe 3 years and political backup. Their agenda is not to improve the particular business, particular company, improve their individual benefit. In that way, you can't expect the like a private entity to improve the firms in the hand of the public sector. It's not theoretically happen because you may get only maybe 3 years. With that 3 year, definitely you go in 3 years. Sometime not enough to get a real entrepreneurial research and development activity. The long term, they can't look at that. And now worst scenario also, this public sector, especially right now, you can say try to tide those public sector officers. Maybe very difficult to. They may not work right now properly because of so many restrictions, so many things. Also, this may negatively affect. If you look at the other part, the consumer surplus, originally B and C area also with the consumers hand. C area definitely now lost to the entire society. B area go to the government. Same thing happened, but here little advantage. Here the consumers individual, maybe 22 million people get this B. Now go to the government. Government has a big lion's share and they can use the research and development production purpose. And the individual may get each one little amount, let's say the $100, something. With $100, they can't do a new business, startup, research and development. If they save money, maybe the 50%, $50 go to the bank. That may happen as a consumer. But anyway, ultimately, what happened, the consumer surplus also reduce and happen. So that is the story behind this book. You can see here the drop in buyer's surplus. You can see the orange color after tax. Here the green color drop in seller's surplus now. The part of them, like I mentioned, goes to government. This is a blue area become a debt weight loss according to microeconomics test. Now, this is the effect, how negatively affect to the tax, society, and economy. Now, in addition to this textbook explanation, like I explained last time, now originally without tax, production is 100 million. Now after tax is let's say 50 million here. This 50 million here reduce production mean to directly look at the production possibility frontier before tax, if you like this, production possibility frontier 1, producing 100 million, now definitely half a drop production possibility frontier. You can see, though the government tried to say the economic growth happened, I can't see any rationale there. Another point, when closed down, when reduced production 100 to 50, the area here, this area value, what we call producers expenditure. Reduce producers expenditure. Producers expenditure in identically equal or identical input providers revenue, which means the laborers, entrepreneurs, human resource managers, the landowners, financial providers, which means bank, other input providers, their revenue. What happened because of action, this area value, the people who work on those industries, they lost their job. They lost their job, create unemployment. Not only unemployment creation, it's, let's say the household is, because the entire household depends on those people's earning, the negative effect to the household also. Now, this is a very dangerous area, though micro textbook does not take into account. Why the neoclassical microeconomics doesn't take it? Recent neoclassical believe the economics up with full employment, but that is not true, especially developing countries. Developed countries also not. What with the full employment scenario, whoever lost jobs in this area, they can find a job in other sector because the economy is full employment. But as you know, that is not the real situation. Another danger also, those who years and years train in this particular sector, to education, to experience, we can't believe that the overnight they can find a job in another sector. For example, suppose he a doctor, tomorrow he can go to a bank and be a bank manager. I mean, they need a different kind of professionalism. Get that professionalism, get that skill, they need at least 6 months, but 6 months definitely not enough, some time period, some training. When the government introduce some kind of tax, does the government have a plan to look after them? Does the government have a plan to train them, look after their families? No. That's the point. Our social protection policies are not looking at that group, that kind of group. They are looking at the group is fundamentally, originally, continuously poor group. Because of their subsidy policies, continuously they are improved. Now you see, the situation is, effect is more serious than the neoclassical economics micro textbook shows and explain. So that is happened. Now, if you have any clarification, any question, you can ask me before I go to the next level. And this is the graph what I try to explain. A, B, C, all the areas. You can see the before tax consumer surplus. D, F, E area before the producer surplus. This is only neoclassical textbook explanation. And after tax, consumer surplus only A, producer surplus become only F, debt status become C and these two areas. The government revenue, B and D. So in addition, I explain the value, let's say this area I put in H sum, that is also danger area because the production. Ultimately, you saw that the production possibility front also shift back, and they can't imagine any sort of economic growth, this kind of policy. Government only target, of course, the current government, current Sri Lankan, IMF, of course, IMF, the one on the economy. They try to only increase the government revenue using those kind of conventional tax. Sooner they maybe will introduce tax to your toilet also when you go to toilet. That kind of a situation badly affect to the economy. If you have any question or clarification, you can start. Okay. If no questions or clarification, now this burden tax burden, consumer producers, again, depend on elasticity. Now here you can see that the burden with the tax, the consumers pay, supplier pay. The burden, you have to add this part also, the consumer to this part, and the producer to this part. So it's also burden. And you can see that when the elasticity change, let's say the demand become inelastic, consumers has to pay more to the government, producers pay less. Now, the point here, like digital service tax like kind of thing, maybe the producers pay directly more, but ultimately they shift those kind of payment to the consumers. All the consumers has to bear that thing. So, though this is the point, yeah. Now, let me show you very quickly how government target tax collection on the consumer side. Maybe the exam I give that way also, but ultimately the effect is same. Now this is the original situation, original demand. This is the original supply. Now the government collect tax from consumers. What happened? The demand curve shift inward, like here. Now this demand become after tax. Now let's say the original production without tax, let's say 100. Now production drop due to tax, let's say about 60,000. Now when you produce 60, now individual has to pay the market, let's say here $8. Here, if I say 5, is the government per unit tax.
Professor, sorry, we can't see your screen slides, Professor.
Oh, I did not share. Sorry for that. Without sharing as well. Now you can see, sorry, I will draw it again. Very sorry, I will draw it again. Now what I try to explain, the government collect tax from consumers with respect to the demand curve. If this is the demand without tax, this is supply original and the equilibrium situation you can see. Now what happened with the tax, the demand reduce, which means the demand curve shift back, and the DT is the demand after tax. Now you can see the original, the equilibrium point, which means the production and consumers 100 now, original, now drop somewhere here, let's say 60. Now when the produce 60, the government collect each unit, let's say tax $3. The market price become here, let's say $8, which means the buyers has to pay price of buyers $8. Seller can keep only $5 because that he has to give to the government. Now look at what happened. The original consumer surplus and producer surplus this way also. Area A, B, and C. Original consumer surplus. Now what happened after tax? The consumer surplus become only area A. Look at the original producer surplus, area D, F, and E. That is the original producer surplus. Now after tax, only producer surplus become area A. B and D go to the government at the government revenue. This thing. C and area become dead weight loss. Again, the economy production reduced 100 to 60. This area become lost to revenue lost to the input providers. They become unemployed, and that happened. Ultimately, if you use the production possibility frontier concept, let's say all the other goods, which is particular good, let's say the import tax. So the production possibility frontier shift like this. It's a no international trade. Originally, consumers satisfaction or welfare W0. Now after tax, you can see if you get the no international trade, now drop down to W. You can see how that works. Now, here the tax, unit tax, the percentage tax also you can analyze, and this is indirect tax, not direct tax. And also the exam, I can ask tax on seller or buyer. If the buyer, this happen. In case of seller, supply curve shift, like I previously explained. Now, the exam again will give you like demand curve. Let's say before tax, 60, let's say minus 3p. And the supply curve, we will get a very simple. So that's how I give exam, let's say 2p. Now in the exam paper, look at the tax on buyer or seller. If buyer is affected to the demand and the price, what buyer pay, their price increase at their price. Now let's say tax, unit tax is $2 per unit. Now you have to find if the original demand and supply curve like this, the equilibrium point, you know how to find using these two. After tax, demand curve shift here. It find those demand curve. DT, find the QDT demand curve. What you have to do, that's exactly what you have to do in the exam. In the original demand curve, you have 60. minus T P. Now what happened, as a buyer, when you buy, you have to pay another unit, that is a simple T, that add to your price. Now look at this particular example, UD T 60 minus T P, whatever the market price, and now unit is 2. Now when you sort it out, this one, you can get the new demand curve after tax. 3 multiplied 2 is 6. 60 minus 6 is 54 minus AP. So this is the demand curve after tax. Now find this point B here. You can use the original supply curve and the new demand curve you can find. Then you can find the buyer price, sorry, seller price and the buyer price. Here difference is unit tax, that is 2. Then you can find all the value, like I explained before, original consumer surplus, original producer surplus, and the government revenue, debt rate loss, and everything you can find that way. Exam, definitely you have to do. I'll give a question like that. Or maybe I'll give a question. Give me another 5 minutes and I'll finish 5 minutes. I may give a question. The government collect tax from seller or tax on seller, which means as tax effect to the supply curve shift. If original supply curve like this, original demand curve like this, now like I explained in the PowerPoint presentation, get the new supply. Of course, the parallel here, I draw here wrong. All the different here, sorry. All the difference here, same, that's the unit tax. Let's say our case 2. Now let's say the original demand curve, I'll take the same one I draw before, take to be 460 minus 3P. Original supply function 2P. Now what happened? The government take tax this $P from seller. So new supply curve after tax in that way, USP 2P. Original, let's say the particular goods unit is $10. Now from $10, the government takes 2. That's the amount of tax. Minus T. Previous, look at the demand curve. When I took the add here minus T. So that we can find the UST right now, new supply curve after tax, 2P, I use as a 2. Now we can get the new supply function, which means the after tax minus here, minus 4 plus 2. So you can see this is the after tax supply curve. So this point now you can find. So after that, you can find same thing what we did before. Consumer surplus, producer surplus, debt weight loss calculation and everything. In addition, I always in the exam look at this area also. Lost unemployment, lost revenue to the input providers area. So with that, today I'm not going to discuss with you subsidies because no time. Now you can see direct tax also I can analyze because direct tax imposed directly your disposable, it's affect to disposable income, which means when the disposable income reduce, demand reduce, demand curve shift, and that also negatively affect and create a debt weight loss. And if case of tax rate also you can look at. So whatever way, small advantage here, not like previous intervention, government can get some amount of revenue. Government can use those revenue for development purpose or correct the market pay. If not happening, is again and again the government failure happen and economy will not develop properly. So whatever way is created at weight loss and also huge amount of area lost to the input providers that negatively affect to the several ways. Though the many economics try to say tax is good for the economy, my feeling is without tax is the economy benefit. Then someone may ask the question, then how government survive, how government provides service to the economy and the society. So this kind of policies, this kind of recommendation outdated. Maybe government can think of new ways or government can impose tax is a purposely targeting the market failure. Externalities, reduce the negative externalities, wherever we give the environment damage, there they collect money and distribute. But it's not happening really right now. Government only purpose is tax, all not the market failure, somehow collect government revenue. That definitely negatively affect to the economy. Though our government, even they understand they can't do anything because maybe their negotiation power is very weak, or I am with the IMF, or IMF will not willing to sacrifice. With that, I will stop since you don't have any question. But still, if you have any clarification question, I can give you another few minutes. So otherwise, you can leave the meeting. See you next week. Next week, we will see whether at least subsidy help to the economy in that way. Of course, like I mentioned, though I can't 100% say the government, the tax negatively, tax can be used for positively create the or address the market failure. It may be the way the positively affect to the economic outcome also. Thank you very much and see you next week. Okay, it looks like no question.